Whether it is at a global LAN,
This is the first fight we get to see him kick it off. I've watched him in creative. He is gross, but can he hit the shots when it matters most? A worst case scenario is a scrappy player like Spy and Focus here looking to fight back a huge 100. Cold puts down Focus though in a great fight, and Cold is 1v2ing here as he only has a little bit of loot set to find something in the distance, comes back to support, and he's here, and they turn it around.
or to win an FNCS,
Keep their own game intact.
What just happened? Acorn is down! Cold only has 63 HP. He needs to move away. Now as a solo player, yet again, down but not out. Cold holds on.
The pressure, the game, this is all it. He's clutched game after game, moment after moment. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride when it comes to second place. Now he's going toe-to-toe, and he does it! Cold and Acorn are your FNCS Major 1 champions!
Cold is one of the greatest players to ever touch the game of Fortnite. But if it wasn't for one decision, there's a good chance nobody would know who he is. In a matter of months, he went from just another kid playing Fortnite to the best fragger the game has ever seen. So how did this happen? Well, this is the entire story of Cold. Cold was born on May 23, 2007, and growing up, he enjoyed playing sports but loved playing video games in his free time even more. When Fortnite was released in September of 2017, all his friends at school started to play, and eventually he hopped on the trend as well. At first, he was just another kid queuing into pubs on console with no intentions of making it a career. But one day, his mom decided to buy him a PC, and he started to play the game a lot more. Over time, he got better and better, and eventually realized how good he actually was. This is when he decided to take the game a little bit more seriously. Eventually, he started to play tournaments, but there was one issue. He was not old enough to actually compete. Like a lot of the new pros today, he started playing in events before he was actually old enough to do so. Still, his first earnings came in the 4th week of World Cup qualifiers when he was only 11 years old. Since he didn't tell anybody, he was never banned, but it's crazy to think how young some people were when they made their first earnings. Going into Chapter 2, he had already earned $1,000 at just 12 years old. And during the Winter Royale in 2019, Epic was basically giving away money, which Cole took advantage of, making $1,500 in one weekend. After this, he had a pretty long dry streak without earning in tournaments, but he finally turned 13, meaning he was actually old enough to compete. This streak of no earnings would come to an end almost 1 year later, as he made $2,000 in under a month from the Super Cup and Frosty Frenzy. Frosty Frenzy was a big turning point in his career as he finally started to play with good teammates. One of those teammates was Crip. Crip was not a tier 1 player, but he had FNCS Grand Finals experience and was a really good IGL. Side note, I actually lived with him for 2 years and he's a great guy. Going into the first FNCS of 2021, things were looking promising as Cold and Crip picked up another scary fighter named Epwi. Nowadays, nobody knows who Epwi is, but if his parents didn't force him to quit, I'm pretty sure he would have been better than Peterbot. They showed a lot of potential, but failed to make it through to the Grand Finals, just falling short in heats. This was a pretty common theme, as the same thing happened in Chapter 2 Season 6 and 7, where they barely missed out on the FNCS Grands. But for some reason, they received a lot of attention for a team that was failing to perform on the big stage. Everyone on this trio was good individually, but as a team, it just was not working. Eventually, they split up, and this is when everyone began to realize that Cold is one of the best fighters in the game. This was perfect for one of the game's OG IGLs, Cease. Although Cease was no longer in his prime, when you mix the fighting ability and natural talent of Cold with his knowledge and experience, good things are destined to happen. The last player to join this trio was Cold's longtime duo, Elite. In their first FNCS in Chapter 2 Season 8, they instantly showed how good they could be with a 6th place in the first week of qualifiers. They qualified for heats and easily qualified for Cold's first ever Grand Finals. Most people did not expect them to do well, considering they were landing at Coral Castle, which was a less than ideal spot, and they also had very little experience as a trio. But they were about to prove everybody wrong. They outperformed everyone's expectations, placing 6th and earning $45,000. Cold was proving that he could hang against the best players in NA, and his stock continued to rise. Plus, he would have another chance to prove himself in the Grand Royale later that season. This tournament had the biggest prize pool since World Cup, and once again, the trio would shine. Coming off of a great performance, they had all the confidence in the world, and that showed in their gameplay. Cease's confidence in his 2 fraggers was at an all-time high, and their aggression paid off as they finished in 5th, making another $54,000. In Chapter 2 Season 8 alone, Cold's earnings went from $3,500 to $40,000, and he was just getting started. Unfortunately, when Chapter 3 was released, that came with the announcement as duos as the competitive game mode, so the trio could not stay together. But this is the moment where his career would truly change forever. With every IGL looking for the best fragger they could find, Sentit decided to give Cold a shot even though he was pretty underrated. The previous year, Sentit's FNCS placements were 2nd, 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 4th, and 6th, so he could have literally played with anyone, but he chose Cold. Right after they announced they were playing together, Cold got picked up by a new organization called Team 33. This was a very interesting situation because after almost a year, the org completely fell apart. It turned out the owner stole hundreds of millions of dollars from another one of his companies before completely disappearing. And to this day, nobody knows where he is. Anyway, Cold was getting a lot more attention thrown his way by playing with Sentit. They started performing almost instantly, winning their second tournament, which was actually Cold's first tournament win ever. And by the time the first FNCS of 2022 came around, he wasn't just a good fighter, he was also extremely smart because Sentit taught him everything he knew. He was on the path to becoming one of the best players in the world, and the sky was the limit. That first tournament win was all he needed to start doing it over and over again. He won his first solo cash cup that season, and it was a sign that he was leveling up once again. Less than 6 months ago, he was struggling to qualify for grand finals, but now not making it would be a disappointment. The duo easily qualified for Season 1's FNCS, but had a really bad day 1. It was looking like a mediocre performance until they completely turned up. They won day 2, dominating the lobby and shooting up the leaderboard to 5th place. That meant Cold's first 3 FNCS placements were 5th, 5th, and 6th, and the success continued into Season 2. Once again, the duo easily qualified for Grands, and the odds were looking really good for Sentit to finally pick up his first FNCS title. This tournament was a 2-horse race between them and another young prodigy who was just beginning his reign of dominance, Peterbot. While Cold and Sentit played pretty well, Peterbot and Bila ran away with the tournament towards the end. Unfortunately, Sentit and Cold would finish in 2nd, so that first FNCS win would have to wait. Although this placement was good enough for them to qualify for the FNCS Invitational LAN, which was the first in-person tournament since World Cup. But there was one more online FNCS before we could get to the LAN. Once again, it was looking like Cold and Sentit would be the favorite to win. Surely this would be the season that they picked up their first FNCS win. Shortly before this tournament, a clip of Sentit saying the N-word was leaked on Twitter. Because of this, Aviv and Donnie put BLM in their names and decided to grief them for the entire weekend. This made them finish in 25th place, which was both of their worst Grands performances ever. All of their confidence and momentum was killed going into the biggest tournament of their entire career. The FNCS Invitational featured all of the best teams in the world, and they honestly had no choice but to lock in. In the second game of the weekend, they did just that.
Just for a little bit and allow the zone to do the rest. Cold finds the one and Sentit finds the other, and A takes game number 2.
You look at that. The passion, the emotion coming out of Sentit and Cold.
Under a year ago, Cold was an unknown fragger, and now he's winning games on LAN and 1v2ing some of the best duos in the world.
This is the first fight we get to see him kick it off. I've watched him in creative. He is gross, but can he hit the shots when it matters most? A worst case scenario is a scrappy player like Spy and Focus here looking to fight back a huge 100. Cold puts down Focus though in a great fight, and Cold is 1v2ing here as he only has a little bit of loot. Set to find something in the distance, comes back to support, and he's here, and they turn it around.
They played a brilliant tournament, but ultimately fell short, placing in 3rd. But after this, Sentit announced that he would be quitting. During this time, Cold had to look for a new duo, and he literally could have played with anybody he wanted. In the end, he decided to play with Acorn. Acorn was a veteran IGL with an FNCS win under his belt, and they perfectly complemented each other's playstyles. They won the Duo Cash Cup right before the Chapter 4 Season 1 FNCS, and then throughout the qualifiers, they played really well. It was looking like this duo was going to be great, and we had no clue how good they'd actually be. When it came to the grand finals, they showed everyone that they were not messing around.
And Cold is trying to put the pressure before they're forced to drop ultimate low. Not very many builds left. Shockwave Hammer trying to bring this game to a close. Cold takes about 75 damage out of zone, in zone. He tried to do all he can. Now it's Acorn's turn to finish the job. 15 eliminations. This team is looking to take the FNCS by storm.
They went on to win this FNCS with ease, which qualified them for the LAN in Copenhagen at the end of the year. At this point, Cold began to blow up on social media as everyone began to realize that he is actually the truth. The following season, NA East and NA West were combined into one server, so he was forced to move away from his family to Dallas, Texas at just 16 years old. This decision turned out to be very worth it though. The last 2 majors of 2023, the duo finished in 6th place, but basically won 1 out of every 3 tournaments for the entire year. For some reason, even with this dominant run, they wanted to split up and play with different teammates for the global championship. Nobody really knew why, but luckily this process was pretty difficult and they ultimately stuck together. For most teams, wanting to split up but then being forced to play together would absolutely kill the vibes, but Acorn and Cold wanted to win by any means, so it was just a little bump in the road. Sadly, the tournament in Copenhagen had a few issues. There was really bad server lag, and since it was only 6 games, there was a little bit of luck involved. Unfortunately, almost every zone pulled max distance from their drop spot, but they still managed to finish in 7th place. After an entire year of being one of the best players in the world, Cold still wasn't finished. 2024 was yet again another year of duos, and although him and Acorn almost split up, they decided to stick together once again. And Season 1 started with a bang. They came out and won 3 duo cash cups, followed by the first FNCS Grand Finals, but not without some controversy. After the first 8 games, the only team close to them was Rise and Iamzo, who were playing out of their minds. The thing is, Rise and Iamzo got DDoS, so they missed 2 of the last 4 games and fell down the leaderboard, which allowed Acorn and Cold to win the tournament with ease. This was one of the many unlucky things that happened to Iamzo throughout his career, so go check out the video I made on him after he finished this one. Once again, this FNCS win qualified them for the Global Championships at the end of the year. The next 2 majors, they finished 3rd and 5th, but they were no longer the dominant duo on the region. That crown had been taken by Peterbot and Poyo. Acorn and Cold tried to stop this from happening because they contested Peterbot and Poyo in a duo cash cup. The thing is, it went about as poorly as it could have gone.
On me. 100 on 1. What up, Acorn, buddy? I'm loading. Good shit, dude. Well, look at this fucking bot. What are you doing? What are you doing? On your hard body. What the fuck? I got it. That killed one. 52. Oh, well, that sucks. You have really good mechanics, but guess what? You don't have good drops. You don't. Get the fuck out. Got it.
Nice, I jumped off.
50 white.
He's on me.
50 white.
Wait.
What are you doing? Get the fuck out, Acorn! 3-0!
They were outdropped every single game and got embarrassed after losing every single spawn fight. Before this year's LAN, there was another massive tournament with an even bigger prize pool. The Esports World Cup was a completely different format than normal Fortnite, featuring 3 game modes that were played in a 4v4 format. During the qualifiers, Cold was signed to Man City Esports, so we had to play with them, but they failed to make it through to the actual tournament. However, being the best player in the world, Clix's org Xset made the move to drop Trashy and pick up Cold to replace him for the tournament in Saudi Arabia. There was some controversy surrounding this about whether Xset should be able to make this decision, but at the end of the day, they had to do what they needed to win. Before picking up Cold, the Xset squad was a top 3 team, but with him, they were the favorites by far. The squad went to Saudi Arabia and absolutely ran through the tournament, making $100,000 each without any struggle. To wrap up 2024, Acorn and Cold looked to improve on last year's placement, but outdoing a 7th would not be easy. They were expected to get top 5, but everyone knew going into it that Peterbot and Poyo were going to win. And when game day hit, Cold and Acorn had to deal with an off-spawn fight. They were contested by Andalex and Sato, and most games were a complete 50-50. Unfortunately, the tournament did not go as expected, with them having their worst performance together ever, finishing 26th. A disappointing end of a great chapter, which would also be the end of Cold and Acorn. After this tournament, Fortnite announced that all of 2025 would be trios. With this being said, Peterbot, Booga, and Cold have formed an absolute super team, so the story of Cold is truly just beginning. I honestly would not be surprised if we saw them go 4-for-4 in FNCSs next year. Let me know who I should make my next video about in the comments, check out the video on screen right now, and subscribe so I can get to 100k.